Ever stumble on one of those stories online? The ones that seem just a little too real. You know, those creepy tales, whispered and shared like they could be true. Blurring that line between fact and fiction. We're going deep into those stories, into the world of creepypasta today.
And it's more than just spooky stories, right? I mean, they really make you think about how we deal with fear, especially online in this digital age.
Definitely. And we've got a great starting point for this deep dive. This Wikipedia article calls creepypasta horror-related legends shared around the internet. Sounds simple, but I bet there's more to it.
Oh, there's always more, right? And the article even points out the name itself, creepypasta. It's a play on copy pasta, that thing we all do, copying and pasting stuff online.
Right. But with creepypasta, it's not just any text, huh?
Definitely not. These are the stories that get under your skin. The ones with those images that stick with you even after you close your laptop. Those unsettling narratives.
So it's like they're taking those old campfire stories, those legends, and bringing them into the online world.
Exactly. Digital folklore. Each click, each share, it's like the story evolves, gets a life of its own.
Which is both fascinating and kind of terrifying when you think about it. So where does it all begin? This Wikipedia article mentions Ted the Caver. That was back in 2001, before the term creepypasta even existed.
Oh yeah, Ted the Caver, that's a great example of where it all started. Really captures that feeling of, like something's creeping up on you, the unknown. But the roots go even deeper. Think back to those chain emails in the 90s.
Oh man, you mean the ones that promised doom if you didn't forward them?
Exactly. They were creepypasta before creepypasta. And they both play on the same fears, right? Technology, the things we don't understand, using the very tools we use to connect to spread fear.
And sometimes those lines between online stories and the real world, they get blurry. Like with Slender Man. This article talks about how that creepypasta, it was linked to a real-life crime back in 2014.
Yeah, that was awful. When those two girls stabbed their friend, they said Slender Man made them do it. It shows how powerful these stories can be, how they can actually change how people see the world, especially, people who are easily influenced. A scary reminder that even if the story's made up, the impact can be very real.
Definitely something to think about. And this article, it digs into the different types of creepypasta too. Mentions things like lost episodes and video game stories.
Oh yeah, the lost episodes. Those really get me. They take something comforting, like a show you loved as a kid, and twist it. Makes you realize even those happy memories can be warped.
Like a messed up reflection of your childhood. And what about video game creepypasta? That's got to be tapping into our reliance on technology, right?
Absolutely. It's that fear of technology turning on us, glitches becoming evil, games hiding dark secrets.
Yeah.
And the more we depend on technology, the scarier it gets, right?
It's like our digital fears taking shape in the very devices we use every day. And speaking of digital fears, the article mentions how some folklorists see creepypasta as a modern form of folklore, which makes sense when you think about how these stories spread and evolve.
Absolutely. Just like traditional folklore, creepypasta is passed down and reinterpreted, often anonymously. But instead of being shared around a campfire or through generations, it happens at the speed of light online. And just like those ancient tales, creepypasta reflects our collective fears and anxieties about the world around us.
So while the medium might be new, the underlying human impulses remain the same. The article also touches on something called analog horror as a subgenre of creepypasta. I'm intrigued. What exactly is that?
This is where things get really interesting. Analog horror takes those unsettling feelings of dread and uncertainty we get from creepypasta and transposes them onto seemingly harmless or mundane things we encounter in our everyday lives.
You mean like taking something ordinary and making it creepy? Give me an example.
Imagine scrolling through social media and coming across a series of seemingly normal photos. Vacations, graduations, everyday moments. But then you notice something off, a recurring figure in the background, always partially obscured, always watching.
Okay, now, that would make anyone feel uneasy, especially since it feels so close to home. It's like those stories are invading our personal spaces, blurring the lines between online and offline even further.
Precisely. That's the power of analog horror. It takes those everyday things we take for granted, social media, family photos, even children's TV shows, and subtly warps them into something unsettling. And it often uses found footage, distorted audio, or grainy visuals that mimic the look and feel of older technology.
I can see how that would amplify the creep factor. It's like those old VHS tapes where you're never quite sure what you're seeing. It adds a layer of realism. It's like those creepy pastas are coming to life right in your living room.
Exactly. It taps into our cultural memory of those older media formats, which often had a certain eeriness even without the creepy content. We associate them with a time before everything was so polished and perfect, which adds to the unsettling vibe. And what's even more unnerving is how much analog horror leaves to the imagination. It's the things you don't see, the questions that linger after you've finished watching or reading that really get under your skin.
So it's like the story's still unfolding in your mind long after you've looked away from the screen.
Precisely. It's that lingering sense of dread, that feeling that something is just off, that's the hallmark of truly effective analog horror. It's about creating an atmosphere of unease that seeps into your subconscious.
It's like a creepypasta rabbit hole within a rabbit hole.
Mm.
But before we get lost in the digital abyss, I want to revisit something you mentioned earlier about creepypasta reflecting our real-world fears. The article really emphasized that connection.
It's a crucial connection to understand. Creepypasta, in many ways, acts as a mirror to our anxieties as a society. It goes beyond just cheap thrills and jump scares, delving into the anxieties that keep us up at night.
You mean like how those 90s chain emails tapped into our growing fear of technology?
Exactly. Those early digital tales reflected a very specific anxiety about the rapidly changing technological landscape. But today, creepypastas delve into a much wider range of fears. Everything from social isolation and online privacy concerns to our deep-seated fear of the unknown.
So, as our anxieties change and evolve, so too do the creepypastas that reflect them. It's like a digital fingerprint of our collective psyche.
Precisely. And that's what makes the genre so fascinating to study from a sociological perspective. It's a constantly updating archive of our collective fears and anxieties, told through the lens of digital folklore.
It really is like looking into a distorted mirror, isn't it? Seeing all those fears right there. But the article also says creepypasta isn't just about being scared. It's become a way for people to be creative, tell their own stories.
That's right. I mean, it starts with horror, sure, but it's become so much more than that. You see all kinds of creepypasta now. Ghost stories, monsters, even stuff about, like, psychology, social issues even.
Wow, so it's really its own genre now, not just individual stories either.
Yeah.
This article talks about creepypasta communities online, even like shared universes.
Exactly. The SEK Foundation, for example. It started as a bunch of stories about this organization, right? A secret group that studies weird stuff, keeps it contained. But now it's huge. Thousands of people writing SCP stories, a whole fan base.
That's wild. It went from a niche thing online to this whole collaborative project.
It shows how powerful shared imagination can be. That's another thing that makes creepypasta so interesting, I think. Always changing, always growing. All these people adding their own little piece to it.
It's like a never-ending horror story, written by the whole internet. One last thing that stood out to me in this article. Creepypasta isn't just an online thing anymore, is it? I mean, we're seeing it everywhere. Movies, TV shows, even video games.
It makes sense though, right? Creepypasta, it gets at something basic, something we all feel. Fear. It doesn't matter where it comes from, online or offline. Those fears, they translate.
It's like those stories crawled out of our computers and into the real world.
In a way, I guess they did. And it shows that stories still matter, you know? No matter how you tell them, around a fire in a dark chat room, a good, scary story, it always finds an audience.
So we started with these creepy little stories shared online, and now it's this whole phenomenon, reflecting our anxieties, sure, but also inspiring creativity, showing how powerful storytelling can be, even in the digital age.
And who knows what's next, right? What new fears will people have? What new stories will they tell? It's kind of exciting to think about.
It makes you wonder what you'll find lurking online, doesn't it? But for now, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into creepypasta. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, be sure to tell us what creeped you out the most, because we might just feature your thoughts in our next deep dive.